Hello. Okay, we are going to talk about a lot of new patient-centered technologies that are either out today or coming out this year or really further out there, but we'll have some fun. First of all, your standard, this is me talking, not necessarily representing the opinions of Pfizer. However, the companies that we're going to talk to, and we're going to go over quite a few of them, doesn't necessarily mean that we're in partnerships with any of them, but we recognize that they're kind of the leaders in some of the new categories that we're going to go over, and they're very happy to be part of this presentation. So first of all, this is a theme here this morning I've heard. I want to admit to you, I also have high cholesterol. And this has been something that several people have brought up and using as an example. And the reason why I'm bringing it up is because a couple of years ago, my doctor and I went through the typical song and dance of exercise more and eat better. But we realized quickly that, okay, you need to go on a statin, right? Small little baby dose, but that's where you should be. So 6 months later, we did another blood test, and the trajectory was still kind of going up, just a little bit. And while my doctor's figuring out, well, let's titrate you up a little bit more, give you a better dose, I'm thinking to myself, no, I need to just take my damn meds, because I wasn't taking them every night. Typical problem, and I work in the industry, and I'm still not taking my meds. So it took about a year, maybe a little bit over a year, to get comfortable with the routine, and took my meds every night, and then, eventually it kind of settled down. But a year could kill somebody with certain drugs, right? A year is way too long. The education that I got was the typical pamphlets of, hey, this is, high cholesterol is dangerous, this is what it can do for you. I read it, I understood it, didn't really impact me so much. What I really needed was for my doctor to show me something like this. And let's see if I can make this play. Is it playing? I think it's playing. Okay, so that is not what I wanted to show. Hold on, there we go. Okay, so what we're looking at right now is what high cholesterol can do in a 360-degree view inside my own artery. If I was given even 60 seconds worth of this, I would have been adherent from day one, right? Because this shows you how the arteries eventually will get blocked. That will eventually lead to a heart attack or stroke. Really nasty stuff. Give me a virtual reality experience for 60 seconds, and I'm all in, right? This is the next generation of those paper handouts we give to patients. And a lot of it is about the story. In this case, the story is a horror story, but it doesn't have to be. It could be a love story. This is a company called VR Fetus that is using a completely different way of virtual reality to do something completely different. Still in the healthcare industry, but it's really kind of cool where they're taking ultrasound to the next level. And it begs to ask the question, what else can we do with this technology? Besides, a lot of us are doing e-detailing now. We're doing some types of patient education. We can do so much more with VR. A company called Nomadic is partnering with a few other companies, and including Microsoft, and are using HoloLens for what I would say is the next generation of telemedicine. Now, in this case, it's giving HoloLens to ambulatory personnel so they can evaluate patients on the scene, and then they can have a support staff or perhaps a specialist or a doctor at the other end of the line that can help the crew evaluate that person. Very, very useful in certain situations, also in rural areas, also very useful. Telemedicine is still kind of disrupting the going to the office approach in many countries. This perhaps could be the next disruption. There's another company called Mimsys that is using VR for virtual meetings, where they're actually able to take a video of you and put you in a virtual environment. So you can actually see everybody else in the same room. You can write on the same whiteboard, but you're actually thousands of miles away. It's really cool. The reason why we're seeing so many different startups just in one area, not to mention all the other areas, is the fact that we're looking at close to $15 billion being invested in digital health just in 2018 overall. Almost 15 billion. That's a huge number. And it's billions of dollars invested in a lot of those different areas. And I'm categorizing them a lot right now, but there's tens and tens of thousands of startup companies in all different directions. The reason for that, I think, is because patients now are more accepting of digital. They're more accepting to take on an app plus a drug, or maybe just an app to start out before they even take the drug. And doctors are more willing to either prescribe a digital therapeutic or let patients know that there's a set of applications. Yeah, maybe they're not validated apps, but there's some apps that maybe you should be interested in and looking at to help you with your journey. Machine learning, I put it as a separate bucket, but it literally could also be the foundation underlining all of these. Because if you think about it, data science, machine learning, that's like the catalyst to so many different startups now. And we're seeing so many new categories of digital health startups because you've got the sensors that are becoming more miniaturized and more advanced types of sensors to do more things, fused together with data that data science can provide to help figure out more types of insights of what all that data is doing. So it's fascinating. We started with this just a couple of years ago. How many people had like the first Fitbit? Anybody? Yeah, a couple people. But it took some time, but think about it. The only thing in that thing was an accelerometer, and it was still kind of big, but that was it, right? And they figured out, Withings and Fitbit figured out you could do a couple different things with this, and then you can create some types of insights over time, but they started collecting data, and Withings has been collecting data for years and years and years. We went from that to this, and this is just a subset as well, right? This is just a small subset of the wearables market looking at some of the new form factors that we're seeing. ECG now is pretty prevalent in a lot of devices. Audio signal processing, we're going to see a couple devices that are doing that now. Even sweat. So there's research going on that claims that they can detect thousands of biomarkers just from your sweat. So think about what that means to disrupting the lab industry. As things miniaturize, as laboratories miniaturize and become more homegrown, there's going to be a lot more opportunity to do things at your home, and maybe we can get, we can get sweat out of that. What is that? I think it's upset because I still have the video running in the background. So all this new data that's coming around also gives us the opportunity to do more data science and more detection of cardiovascular disease, rare disease, and also even intervene and create more digital therapeutics to help our patients. We're going to get to the point eventually, I hope, to where a lot of these things are going to be tracked without wearing anything at all, right? Just complete passive monitoring. The connected home is a very good example of this, where there's some research going on. There's a couple of companies now that actually are doing this, where they're able to collect vitals through Wi-Fi signals. And not just Wi-Fi, but through infrared. Over time, I think more of the ways that we even collect the data that we collect from wearables or connected clothing, we'll be able to do without even thinking about it. Because our homes are going to do it, our cars are going to do it. And we really should be looking, as an industry, on how to get to where the patient is, or the consumer is, right? And how to leverage the things that they have in their home today, or look at what they're going to have in their home tomorrow through industries that may not be health industries, but they may pivot, or we may help them pivot into that. My home today can tell me, God forbid, if there's a fire, and it knows how to react. It knows how to wake me up. It knows how to call the fire department. It may even know how to put the fire out. I also want my home to tell me when my child's fever spikes at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I want it to eventually be able to figure out how to handle that too, right? So we're constantly tracking to this. And hopefully at some point, our homes will be very, very much smart health monitors as well, as we start to see this convergence of connected home and health IoT. Okay, so let's have a little bit of fun. Here's a couple of examples of some of the newer things coming out on the market. There's researchers in Atlanta, Georgia, that have figured out that they can detect if a patient is anemic or not just by taking a picture of their fingernails. So they were smart enough, they put together all these different skill sets and different scientists together, and they figured out that the melanin-producing cells that would normally block the color of the hemoglobin does not exist in a fingernail. So they wrote some algorithms, some data models, and image recognition algorithms to figure out, okay, well, if I take a picture of it, I can actually detect the trace amounts of hemoglobin that can translate into whether a patient is anemic. What I like about it is you never would think about taking a picture of your fingernail for anything that has to do with health. So what else is out there? What else can we use our phone for? Ritesh was talking about this earlier. That mobile device is so powerful, and it's startup companies like this that are really making it evolve even further to help our patients. A company called Healthy.io is taking what used to be just the decades-old pregnancy test, and they're figuring out new things they can do with urine analysis at home in real time, such as UTI and kidney disease. But they're also making that, it's not just an app that will tell you, oh my God, I need help, but it's an app that will connect you potentially to physicians or care practitioners in your area. And that's also another thing that we're finding, and another theme, is that apps or digital apps are not standalone anymore. They really are connected with other either apps or with other HCPs. They're not leaving the patient alone. And we need to make sure that we don't do that either when we build our digital apps. So breathalyzers. Lumen is coming out this year with a breathalyzer that can detect your metabolism. Okay? It's for healthy people to keep themselves healthy, those that are worried about their diet, how they metabolize food. You're going to be able to do that with your breath. And it's really cool because there's also research going on that can detect certain types of cancers and rare disease with your breath. So over time, we really need to be paying attention to these trends in this type of research because it makes it really easy for a consumer now to maybe not completely diagnose themselves, but to do health checks when maybe they wouldn't want to do health checks, right? Those that don't want to go to the doctors every year. Well, maybe they'll want to do a breath test every couple of months. It can make them safer and keep them healthy. NEMA is some research that came out of MIT that can detect gluten and nut allergies and nuts in food. So it keeps people with those allergies very safe as well. And this is great. It works in 20 or 30 seconds. You plop in a little sample set in the cartridge, and you let it go, and it will tell you if it detects that particular item or not. This is available today. Lumen, the breathalyzer, is coming out hopefully by the summertime. There's also new types of apps that are mostly being used when you are diagnosed with something. But from a consumer point of view, Steth.io is now taking the stethoscope into the next level. It's completely digitized. And I like this one because everybody hears things a little bit differently. Some people will hear certain heart murmurs, others won't. I had a doctor, it's happened to me. One doctor heard a very slight faint heart murmur, the other one did not. This handles all of that, right? It has audio signal processing. It can amplify the signal that it hears from your heart and lungs to identify abnormalities, where some may catch it and some may not catch it. And you can, as a consumer, you can buy this. I don't know anybody that would really buy it unless maybe you have a condition where you have to go to the doctors once a month to get checked. This could help you, maybe those that cannot easily get to the doctor. You can take one of these. Withings, I mentioned them earlier. Withings, they've really, they have a couple of devices that are just the absolute best in class, in my own opinion. And that blood pressure cuff is one of them. I don't think that is ever going to go away. They're just going to keep on bolting on new and new features. And I love companies like this because these are companies that are investing in data science. They recognize that there's 10 plus years of data that they have to build out these predictive models and to build out more intelligence into their systems and taking on new types of sensors to do more things. So later on, they're coming out with audio signal processing. I guess it's going to be a competitor to that, to Steth.io. And then they're going to do things like AFib detection, which we're seeing a lot of other devices doing over time. So it's good to watch the Withings types of companies, even though they're not really startups anymore, because they're still constantly evolving, and they're the richest ones when it comes to data. So we always talk about keeping patients in the center. Patients are controlling their own health. Yes, absolutely. And we need to focus first, I would like to focus on where they are. Before we even talk about the technology, let's talk about where they are. They're not just in their home. They're in their car. They're in their office. They're in their community. We talked about smart homes, how that can help with healthcare monitoring. What about the community? What about smart cities? As these new technologies touch other industries, we should be looking at those other industries and seeing where they can converge into healthcare monitoring as well. Then we can talk about bolting on all the technology. And then to recognize that consumers, before they even become patients, consumers are now using so many more types of digital things than they used to in the past. There's still a lot of issues, I think, with symptom checkers, a lot of mistrust with a lot of types of bots like that. But companies like Ada are doing a really good job. And what they're doing is they're not just telling you you have the probability of this, this, or this. They're also connecting you with care centers. They're connecting you with communities. So they're not leaving you stand alone, sitting at a website saying, oh my God, now what do I do? And that social component is something we're also really recognizing, right? Consumers in general are much more social. They're on apps all the time. We should be building some of those components into what we do. We have an app called Living With. It's an oncology-based app. One of the reasons why that's successful is because we recognize that patients want to be connected to a care community, to a care circle, right? They don't want to just be left alone. So we want to constantly figure out how to build things that use, when they become a patient, how to build things that use a lot of the things that they're already used to, because then we'll get better adherence and the apps will be stickier. The other thing, trending that we're seeing from a lot of these companies is patients want to know, patients want to know their numbers, and they know them more than they used to in the past. Cholesterol is still a little bit difficult. You got to go get blood work, but once you know your number, you know what to do about it. But a lot of other things, resting heart rate, the blood pressure, a lot of these other things, patients used to just kind of blow off and say, okay, well, great, I walked 10,000 steps today, or my heart rate is this. Now they understand what that means. And that really successful startups and successful apps are doing something about that. They're recognizing whether they're trending low or high, and they're giving them suggestions and advice. They're making it personal. And that really is helping them, and we should be paying a lot of attention to that, how we can leverage that to engage our patients. I would love for, when I don't sleep well at night, not to wake up to just find what my sleeping cycles were and my sleeping patterns. It's obvious I didn't sleep well, right? What I want my app to do, or my smart home to do, is to say, okay, we're going to adjust your temperature because we are now connected to HVAC, and we're going to adjust your alarm because we know what your cycles are, so we know when you should be beginning to be woken up, and maybe we'll even adjust your lighting in your bedroom, possibly even adjust your shades. So all of these things interconnected, we should look for patterns with, where maybe we haven't been in the past, but through smart home and IoT technology, we have better opportunities to do that. When the patients do finally get, or not finally, but when the patients do get sick, or they have to go to the doctor, and the doctor wants them to be monitored, or they get diagnosed with something, there's more technologies now that we're not just giving to the patient directly, but I believe they're being wrapped around the other apps that they are already using. So again, we don't want to assume that we'll create an app standalone to monitor a patient and ignore the fact that the patient is already using 2 or 3 other social apps or other things. Instead, we really should be recognizing what it is they're using and bolting on capabilities to what they already have. This way, it's as least intrusive as possible. Now, on the diagnosing side, there's a company called Face2Gene, which claims they can identify over 2,000 plus rare diseases just by facial recognition. Now, think about that plugged into or integrated into telemedicine. It's huge opportunities there, right? On the treatment side, there's a company called Karuna VR, which does, they actually have clinical studies now they're running for chronic pain, virtual reality-based chronic pain. So there's pure digital therapy. We should be looking more and more into that. as something that can help augment what we currently give to our patients. And then monitoring, Addison Health is looking at not just a digital assistant in your home. Addison Health is the little avatar up there, but also integrating all of the sensory devices and the consumer or clinical grade devices. And they can connect you not only to a digital assistant, that's pretty smart, it's got the ontology of medicine that you're talking to, you're not just talking to an Alexa, but also it connects you with care centers. So again, it has that, maybe not social component, but it has that interface to the outside world so a patient doesn't feel alone when they're being monitored. And the most powerful thing around all of this is, again, the data. The fact that these systems are not standalone, and they shouldn't be. We really should be paying attention to all the different types of data that these systems generate and looking at the data science behind how we can deliver that data, package it up, and bring it back to the patient in new ways, create new insights for them, new recommendations, perhaps build new interventions and digital therapeutics for them. That's the power of this. So where are we going? Ingestibles, that was a buzzword at CES. We all know about Proteus. It's a great, I think it's the first pill-based, ingestible for adherence. Now, there's other things coming around. There's research going on where you can ingest a pill, and it will analyze your entire digestive tract, tell you if you have certain types of conditions or diseases, and also, by the way, tell you exactly what you ate. So no more writing anything down. You take a pill once a day. I'm making this up. They haven't come out yet. But you take a pill once a day, and maybe you automatically know exactly how many calories you consumed the night before. Who knows what they're going to come up with? But the fact that you're ingesting something now and then you're done is even cooler than just having to wear a wearable all day long, right? Other research going on at MIT figured out that they can put bioluminescent bacteria into a pill. And when that gets digested in the stomach, if it detects blood in the stomach, it illuminates. There's a photosensor also inside that tiny little capsule that recognizes that color and sends a signal to a phone. So boom, you've got whether you're bleeding in the stomach. What else can ingestibles do over time? And there's that crazy little error message again. Now to go really far off, because I'm pretty much done, digital twins. How many of you have heard what digital twins even are? Right, yeah, a couple. They're basically I call them like simulations. Hospital systems are actually using these where they completely digitize a process, an ER room, for instance, and work on how to optimize a particular process a little bit more. So they create every aspect of a physical thing, they digitize, and then they run simulations. Think about decades from now, our biological systems being digitized. These are things people are actually thinking about. When you get sick, you literally can do the equivalent of run through high-throughput screening on a digital compound library, figure out exactly what it is you need, what type of formulation you need, whether it's digital or whether it's an analog, it's a drug. That's cool. Today, it's systems. Tomorrow, hopefully, it's biology. So I'll leave you with this. Go where the patient is. Look at companies, look at startup companies that are not just doing one thing, but they're pivoting or they're evolving. They're using data science really, really, really well in every place a consumer and a patient is today. And look at those companies that are personalizing the experience, because those are the ones that those are the apps that are going to be sticky that a patient's going to go to and remember to go to again and again. And with that, I think I am done. So thank you very much. I don't know if we have any time for...
We do have a couple minutes if anyone has questions. Right here.
Right here. Have you heard anything about implantables?
Yes.
Any,
not enough to put it in a talk. Yeah, so you mean like neurological?
Well, like for instance, sensing or monitoring devices that are implanted to, for long-term evaluation of symptoms or body chemistry or something.
Yeah, I mean, I know that there's for Parkinson's patients, for instance, they've got them, and I know that they do a lot of different types of sensing and vitals. Not not to the level that we're seeing ingestibles start to come out to the market, because I think the problem with that is they're still pretty intrusive. You got to go through an operation and all. So yeah, but I'd be interested, if you know more about that, I'd be interested in talking with you afterwards, though.
Any other questions? Well, far corner.
Hi. Yeah, so really this is meant for educational purposes for everyone here, just to give you an idea of what's out there. As far as Pfizer goes, we're not really necessarily partnering with any of these companies. I mean, we're like every other, there's several other pharma companies here today. We're all, I mean, we would be crazy not to be looking at these types of technologies, but I can't really say whether we're investing in one particular.